not you. I'm from dreams, not you. Cannot pass you by. Something stops my life. Sure, I need to try. Hold on, baby. Anyone from you makes my dreams come true. My heart's in your sway. Hold on, baby.
While there are definitely a lot of technological advances that could bring some improvements to Pokémon GO, today I actually want to focus on something that Niantic has a little bit more control over. I am, of course, talking about the battle system. I've been mentioning it for probably months now, saying that we need a battle system rework before Gen 3 drops, because there are a lot of Pokémon who rely on abilities in order to be useful or even usable at all in the main series games. Abilities are something that don't exist at all in Pokémon GO, but would be, like I said, necessary before Gen 3 drops, in my opinion. So today what I want to do is present some of my ideas for how an updated battle system, a battle system rework, could potentially go down in Pokémon GO. And if you're new to the channel, this is a continuation of something I used to do last year. Probably haven't done it since then, actually. Now, I've always had an interest in game design, and one of the things that I like to do with Pokémon GO is talk about ways that the design can be improved. Currently, our battle system is, well, it's this. It's tap the screen a bunch of times until your purple bar fills up, and then hold the screen until your purple bar goes away, and you deal a little bit of extra damage. No challenge, no strategy. That's what's missing from this game. I'm just gonna finish this gym off, but we're gonna talk about the rest of this back at the apartment, because California's on fire. I don't know if you've heard. There's a fire in Anaheim Hills in Southern California. There's a fire in Santa Rosa in Northern California, where Mystic 7 is right now. And the air quality is not great. This wasn't 100% a stylistic choice today. This is actually functional. So I'm gonna go home where I can breathe a little easier, and we'll go into detail about how I think a potential battle system update could work in Pokémon GO. These fires are kind of no joke. I left my window open when I left to go film, and my bed is now covered in ash. Also, sorry, Mom, I didn't make my bed. But I just want to say, you know, if you're being affected by these fires, please stay safe, evacuate if that's what you're told to do, because it's pretty serious, both down here and up in Northern California. So I just want everyone to stay safe. Please call your loved ones, let them know you're okay, and yeah, hopefully they get them under control soon. Okay, it's now 3 a.m., a day and a half later. I have spent the last day and a half working on what you saw earlier in the video. So sorry there wasn't a video yesterday. I just got a little ambitious with this one. So right now that Arcanine animation is finally exporting, and it's time to talk about an updated battle system for Pokemon GO. So again, these are just my thoughts, these are my ideas. They're not perfect by any means, but this is just some things that I would like to see in Pokemon GO. Feel free to leave comments if you think my ideas are terrible, if there are things that you like. If you have your own ideas, please share. Let's talk about it, because I really would like to see some of these things implemented in the game at some point. So before we start, I just want to say there are certain constraints that I understand Niantic is probably designing within. The Pokemon Company doesn't want Pokemon GO to be too similar to the main series games. That's one reason we don't have a turn-based battle system. Niantic and the Pokemon Company both want Pokemon GO to be a quick, fast-paced game, which is another reason we don't have a turn-based battle system. So these ideas that I'm about to share are sort of designed with the intention of being reasonable. I don't want to go overboard. I want to come up with ideas that I think Niantic and the Pokemon Company would realistically be okay adding to Pokemon GO. So what I've come up with is similar enough to the existing battle system that I think it's reasonable, but it adds a significant amount of depth and strategy, things that we really need in this game. The real problem with Pokemon GO's battle system isn't tap and swipe like I've been saying. The controls themselves are fine. The issue is that it's just a race to deal as much damage as possible and nothing else. That's why there's one best counter for every Pokemon in the metagame, and no reason to really ever try anything else. To really improve the battle system, we need options. We need to be presented with choices. Right now, the question is always, which Pokemon deals the most damage to this gym defender? And there's always only one right answer. Introducing some new mechanics to the game gives us options. It makes battles a little less predictable and forces us to make choices. So here's what I'm thinking, and I wrote down my ideas so I can get through this a little quicker. It is 3 a.m. after all. Pokemon would still have one quick move, but they can now have up to 3 charge moves for a total of 4 moves, like the main series games. But quick moves would work exactly the same as they do now. You tap the screen to use it, it deals a little bit of damage and fills up the charge bar by a set amount. The charge bar also works the same way. You fill it up and you can use charge moves. The difference now is that every Pokemon's charge bar would be broken into 3 smaller bars or 3 segments, no matter which charge moves they know. Each charge move has a cost, either 1, 2, or 3 bars. More powerful moves would require all 3 bars to be filled, while weaker moves may require only 1 or 2. Using a charge move would be similar. You'll tap and hold on the screen briefly until a circular contextual menu appears. It would be split into 4 separate sections, 3 of them for charge moves, 1 for switching Pokemon. To use a charge move, you just slide your finger in the direction of the move you want to use. If you want to switch Pokemon, slide down. So it's simple. Touch the screen, hold it, your moves pop up, you just slide, pick a move. It's quick, it's easy, and I think it's intuitive, right? It makes sense. Okay, the next bit doesn't even require a battle system rework. It's balance. Moves would be balanced so that there are multiple different combinations that players can use depending on their Pokemon and their playstyle. A quick move's damage and energy gain should be inversely proportional, meaning the more damage the move deals, the less energy it charges, and vice versa. This leads to 2 different specializations. Glass Cannon's fast Pokemon like Gengar and Alakazam can use their quick moves to deal a lot of damage quickly, while still being able to dodge relatively reliably. Tankier Pokemon, utility Pokemon, could sacrifice damage to charge their charge bars a little bit faster and use charge moves more often. Now, speaking of charge moves, they would do a lot more than just damage. Secondary effects are something that's been obviously missing from Pokemon GO's battle system since launch. Status conditions, stat buffs, there's so much that was stripped away from the Pokemon GO battle system to appeal to the masses. Well, the masses are gone. They've given up. They've been gone since last summer. It's time to give dedicated players a little bit more to work with. The most obvious addition would be status conditions. In the main series games, there are 5 or 6 main conditions, depending on who you ask. They are poison, burn, freeze, sleep, paralysis, not sleep paralysis, sleep and paralysis, and confusion. There are more special conditions like torment and infatuation, but for the most part, those are only inflicted by one move, whereas the main status conditions can be caused by many different moves, so they're a lot more common. But before I explain how those status conditions could work in Pokemon GO, there's one more thing that I need to introduce. There are 2 things that the Pokemon GO battle system has that give it an advantage over the main series battle system. They are space and time. Pokemon can move around the battlefield, albeit just by dodging left and right, and moves actually take time rather than turns. These 2 things can be used in a lot of very interesting ways. So back to status conditions. I'm just going to read it because it's way easier. The first is poison. Poison deals damage over time. In the main series games, a Pokemon that's poisoned loses 1/8 of its HP every turn. In Pokemon Go, it could work very similarly with a Pokemon losing a set percentage of its HP over time, say 1% per second. Poison would be a great counter to hyper tanks like Blissey, whose massive HP are honestly just annoying at this point. A poisoned Blissey, or any Pokemon for that matter, would be on a 100-second timer, taking poison damage in addition to the damage that it takes from regular moves. The next status condition is burn. In the main series, as of Gen 7, burned Pokemon lose 1/16 of their HP every turn, and they also have their attack stat cut in half. Again, it could work similarly to poison, maybe just a little bit less, 1% every 2 seconds or so, and the Pokemon could also have its attack stat cut in half. Now obviously we don't have a physical and special split in Pokemon Go. Both stats are combined into one attack stat, so all of a Pokemon's moves would be affected. All of its attacks would deal less damage when it's burned. Now of course I would like to see a physical special split in Pokemon Go, but let's not go overboard here. I'm trying to be reasonable, remember? Next up is freeze. Frozen Pokemon are frozen. They can't attack, they can't do anything, actually. While frozen in Pokemon Go, a Pokemon wouldn't do anything either. In the main series, there's a 20% chance of a Pokemon thawing out every turn. That could translate to a 20% chance of a Pokemon thawing every 2 seconds or so. The actual times would require some testing for balance, but that's Niantic's job, not mine. Sleep is a lot like being frozen. A sleeping Pokemon can't attack, except for a few special moves like Sleep Talk and Snore. In the main series games, Sleep currently lasts for 1 to 3 turns. In Pokemon Go, it could last for 3 to 10 seconds, and Sleep would be a great way to slow down Pokemon and stop them from dealing damage for a while. Paralysis is kind of similar, kind of not. In the main series games, a paralyzed Pokemon has a 25% chance of not being able to attack each turn, and it has its speed stat cut in half. In the past, I've talked about how speed could be implemented in Pokemon Go, with one idea being that it would affect Pokemon's attack animation times. Faster Pokemon would have their animations sped up and deal damage a little bit faster. Slower Pokemon's animations would be slower and they would deal damage slower. So building off that concept, a paralyzed Pokemon could have its animations slowed down. Again, the actual numbers are a job for Niantic, testing and balancing. There is one more status condition that I want to touch on really quickly, and that's confusion. Confusion ends when you switch a Pokemon out. It lasts for 1 to 4 turns in the main series, and a Pokemon has a 33% chance of dealing damage to itself instead of its opponent every time it attacks. It's not full damage, it's a set calculation, not important right now. But it could work the same way in Pokemon Go, where every time you attack for 10 seconds or so, there's a 33% chance that you deal damage to yourself instead of the enemy. The first 5 status conditions last even after a battle ends in the main series games, but I don't think that's entirely necessary. In Pokemon Go, we are trying to keep things simple, remember? So one thing that would be necessary though is a new item. You could just implement Full Heal, which is an item that could heal any status condition. And it's a lot easier than implementing the specific items like Antidote for Poison and Paralyze Heal for Paralysis. Considering some of these status conditions have a time limit, Full Heal would have to be easily accessible in battle, so I'm thinking if a Pokemon gets hit with the status condition, a Full Heal icon would show up in the bottom corner of the screen, so you could just hit it, use the Full Heal really quickly, provided you actually have Full Heal in your bag. If you had to spend too much time digging through menus to find your Full Heal, sometimes you might be better off just waiting out the condition, and the Pokemon will heal on its own in time. Alright, still following? Beyond status conditions, there's another thing that's missing from Pokemon Go, and that's stat buffs. In the main series, there are moves that can increase or decrease a Pokemon's stats for the duration of the battle. For example, if a Pokemon uses Swords Dance, it would increase its attack and deal more damage. If a Pokemon uses Screech, it would lower its opponent's defense and deal more damage, while the opponent would take more damage. These could easily be implemented as charge moves in Pokemon Go, and I don't think it would be too difficult for people to understand. As long as the in-game messages are clear and they show up on time, if you see that your Scyther's attack stat went up, you'll understand why it's dealing more damage. If you see that a Pokemon lowered your Pokemon's defense stat, you'll understand why it's taking more damage. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about time with status conditions, but how could space be implemented and used in Pokemon Go? Right now, if a Pokemon attacks, you dodge and you reduce the damage by 75% no matter what. With space, some attacks could attack straight out like what we have now, and you could dodge once and avoid them, but some attacks could attack in, say, a cone. Imagine the battlefield as a circle, as it is, as you're dodging around your opponent. Every time you dodge, you're moving one space. If an attack deals damage in a cone, you might have to dodge twice, sometimes maybe even 3 times to completely avoid the damage. Other moves like Earthquake might deal damage all around and be completely undodgeable. If that were the case, obviously you'd have to balance it out by either decreasing its damage or increasing its animation time relative to other moves. But you could also avoid Earthquake with certain abilities. They're a big part of Gen 3, and I've been talking about them quite a bit leading up to Gen 3's eventual launch. They are a huge part of Gen 3, and one of the main reasons that I've been calling for this battle system update ahead of Gen 3's release. Abilities are passive qualities that Pokemon have. Some of them have effects in battle, some of them have effects outside of battle. So for example, to avoid Earthquake, you could use a Pokemon with the ability Levitate, which makes it immune to ground type moves. It could be full immunity, or I'd even settle for the lame half immunity that we have in Pokemon Go right now. That's one example, but there are so many more abilities that could add interesting effects to the battle system. You have abilities like Overgrowth and Torrent that raise the power of certain types of moves when a Pokemon's HP is low. You have abilities like Strong Jaw, which raise the power of biting moves like Bite, Crunch, Fire Fang. Hypercutter and Clear Body can prevent a Pokemon's stats from being lowered. Insomnia prevents it from sleeping. Limber makes it immune to paralysis. Flame Body gives a small chance of burning an opponent when they make contact through a physical move like Tackle or Bite or Close Combat. There are so many abilities that could be added to Pokemon Go that would just add so much depth to the game. Then there are the Pokemon that need their abilities. Slacking is going to be a 5400 CP monster. It has higher stat totals than a lot of legendary Pokemon, but it's all balanced out by its ability Truant. In the main series games, Truant lets Slacking attack only once every other turn, effectively reducing its damage by half. Now obviously without its ability, Niantic could just give it a targeted nerf like they did with Mewtwo, but if they implemented abilities, Truant could make Slacking's move animation times doubled, effectively cutting its damage output in half, just like in the main series. Shedinja is another special case. It has 1 HP. 1 HP. But it has an ability called Wonder Guard, which means it only takes damage from super effective attacks. So as a bug and ghost type, it can only take damage from fire, rock, flying, ghost, and dark type moves. Anything else won't deal damage at all. If Niantic added Shedinja to Pokemon Go without giving it Wonder Guard, it would pretty much faint immediately upon entering any battle, making it entirely useless. Now the truth is, with all these additions, status conditions, buffs, abilities, there would still probably be one best counter for every meta Pokemon. But the real benefit of making all these changes is that we're better poised for the eventual launch of PvP, or player versus player battles. PvP is the real goal, but it would be pointless with the current battle system. Whoever spams their attacks faster would win. There would be one best Pokemon, whoever has the best DPS combined with tankiness. The next best Pokemon would be the best counter to that, and then the counter to the counter, and so on. With the added strategy of multiple charge moves, conditions, abilities, all that fun stuff, players would be allowed to be far more creative with their teams. Of course, there would still be top tier Pokemon, but you could have a lot more fun coming up with different ways to beat them. Imagine a Shuckle that uses Toxic to poison the opponent and then uses Protect and Rest to stall while the enemy slowly faints. True story, I used a Shuckle with a very similar build back in competitive play in Gen 3 and actually beat 2 legendary Pokemon with it in one battle. You might be prepared for the meta counters, but no one ever expects the Shuckle. So I guess that's it. Those are my ideas for how a battle system rework could function. Honestly, even if we didn't get status conditions or abilities, which honestly we need, you could still have a lot of fun implementing 3 charge moves. The 3 charge move system that I outlined is simple enough, and giving people options, having 3 different charge moves of different types, means you can have better type coverage with one Pokemon. It means you could still have a Machamp with Counter and Dynamic Punch, but it could also maybe learn Stone Edge to counter any flying types that might be used against it. It would also make gym battles a little less predictable, which is always a good thing. So drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think, share your ideas, and I don't know, hopefully it happens. The truth is, if the next major update to Pokemon GO is a battle system rework, at this point Niantic has it all figured out, because we should be getting an update soon, right? Right? Still, it's fun to be creative and come up with new ideas. So I hope you guys enjoyed these ideas. Let me know, again, what you think. I'm gonna go to sleep now. I'll see you tomorrow.